Hello? Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's all good. Regarding Max Kellerman's explanation about Teofimo Lopez brushing you over the behind your shoulders, what was your what was your whole take about that right away?
Man, like I said before, look, boxing is a gentleman's sport, right? Going into that is one thing, before the fight, I know the hype, I know the social media lifestyle. We're all aware of, what I mean, to bring action and drama and all that to the limelight before a fight. But after the fight is a different thing. The reason I love boxing is because you go into the ring with somebody who's trying to tear your head apart, right? But after the fight, you have a certain level of respect for that other fighter for coming in. You know what I mean? They're trying to take your head off because at the end of the day, we're both winners, and we both try to do what's best for us in our career. I think what he did at the end of the fight, the sweeping motion of trying to take my head off, and the little putter that he did at the end of that was a bit disrespectful.
Yeah.
To not only me and to the sport of boxing.
Yeah.
Ask him if he noticed it live.
With saying that, I also agree that his father, because leading up to that fight, his father was the one in the background who got kicked out on the day of the press conference. He got kicked out by the top-ranked people because he was spouting out at the mouth. He wouldn't stop. He just kept shouting out the whole time. It was difficult for me to get anything out because he just kept shouting out just jibber jabber. It was nonsense. So I mean, I know that his Teofimo has that as an influence. His father. So I mean, you don't expect too much from a young kid who just wants to make a name for himself. But at the same time, this is boxing. Like I said before, it's a gentleman's sport, and there's a lot of people looking at us. You know what I mean? Because we're on a pedestal, kind of. We're in the limelight, and we're on a stage and a platform where there's kids looking at us. Kids want to be us. They look up to us. They look at us as role models. So I feel that doing something like that in the ring, especially on national television, is uncalled for. It's something that you shouldn't do, and you have to remember that there's a lot of young kids that are looking up to us, and I have a 2-year-old son, and I'm just mindful of things like that. And I know he's younger, but at the same time, you have to know what role you have as a professional fighter.
Ask him about the alleged comments.
Yeah, so apparently there were some comments from your camp, right? Because you had an interview with some guy like a couple of days before, leading up to the fight.
Ernesto,
right?
Amador,
yeah,
who
Spanish
was
interview.
a sports writer for Univision. He's known all around the globe. He is, someone who, who's a good friend of mine or whatnot. But yes, that's where all the havoc and all the drama came from. But what my thing is, don't be a sheep and don't be a follower. Don't believe everything you read online, and do your homework. That's my thing that I've learned from this fight alone, because what was said and what was said that he said that came from my camp alone was not said at all. He did 5 interviews that day. He did 5 different fighters. Me, I was one of them. The other 4 fighters were training at Top Rank, who weren't a part of my camp at all. And the headline on his interview was that it came from the Magdaleno camp. Now, I'm not responsible for the other 4 interviews he did. Whether they said what they said or didn't say it at all, I'm not responsible for that. Those words never came out of my mouth. It never came out of my dad's mouth. My brother Jesse was not at the gym that day, nor was my younger brother Marco at that gym today. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. That's misleading information. Let me clear that up, and I've tried to clear that up so many times. That did not come from me. I have no problem with Honduras at all. I know the struggle. Of coming to this country. My dad knows it because my dad at the age of 17 came to America to better his future and left his whole family at the age of 17. That's something that I wouldn't do right now. It would be difficult for me to leave to a different country where I know nothing. I don't understand the language. I don't have a job, and that's something very difficult. So I know my dad's been telling me stories of how difficult it was. So for me to badmouth another country that way is just out of the ordinary. It wouldn't happen. It would never happen. And for them to think that I said that, and in the interview, there's a YouTube post that he posted. You can tell that I dodged that whole question completely. So it never came from me or my camp. Let me just say that right now, and you hear it. You know, you can put it out there. I've said it once. I've said it twice. I've said it 100 times already by now because I want to get that point across. It's never came from me or anyone in the Magdaleno camp or the Two Fuego camp at all whatsoever. I have the utmost respect for anyone south of the border or north of the border, any border at all.
And and one more thing, I know you were being interviewed with Joe Cortez, right, just recently?
Right.
And you brought up something that kind of concerned me, dude, because you were talking about how people were saying maybe they should stop the fight, right? Whether in the second round, third round.
That was the controversy behind this fight.
Yeah.
Was two things.
But I know
one, that I was talking about Honduras, and his backlash of what he was doing after the fact to kind of go over his reasoning, to be rational, or his reasoning behind what he did because of what I said. And let me tell you, that was never said. But the other thing was, the stoppage. You know what I mean? They were blaming my corner. They were, because I was in that interview. I said something. I brought up, a good friend of mine, Victor Ortiz, who's been in the ring and he's been been through some controversy himself. And the one side was with Teofimo Lopez when he decided to call it,
the broken jaw,
call it for his own well-being. You know what I mean? And the fans gave him a lot of shit for that. So I'm like, hey man, if he can call it for his own well-being, to look out for himself so that he could live to fight another day, like, hey man, credit to you. You know what I mean? But for the fans to lash out at him after that is completely uncalled for. So my thing is, like, when do you draw that line? So after my fight, my dad was getting death threats. My coaches were getting death threats. This is crazy. This is craziness. You know what I mean? Because it's not, the fans don't know what I was going through or what was going on in between rounds. You know what I mean? The cameras weren't there 100% in between rounds.